All right, good evening, students. Thank you for being part of this presentation. Today we have a virtual presentation continuing in the series of presentations for ACE. And tonight we'll be going over sustainability and LEED with Tiffany with SB Architects. So we're happy to have Tiffany here this evening. And so take it away.
Thank you. So again, we're going over sustainability, often something that should be involved from the get-go in decision making, but we'll get a little bit deeper into that. A little bit about us, SB Architects. We are here in Coral Gables. Rita is also part of our team. We've been around since 1960. We have offices in San Francisco, Coral Gables, Dallas, Medellin, and London, with specialty in hospitality, mixed use, multifamily, single family, and luxury retail. My name is Tiffany Montañez. I am an associate and project manager at SB Architects. Kind of a little bit about me. I went to Syracuse University in New York and got my Bachelor of Architecture from there. My focus is currently luxury single family, F&B design, hospitality. Previously at other companies, it was educational design, and then a lot of construction administration. Outside of SB Architects, I am also the secretary of the South Florida National Organization of Minority Architects, or NOMA. I am AIA Miami's Diversity and Inclusion Chair, and Project Pipeline, which is a summer camp for for students who are interested in pursuing architecture. And I've been in the profession for about 10 years. Some other projects. We've done a design district in Miami, in Longboat Key. We have the St. Regis, which Rita also worked on. And then some of the projects I've been working on have been mostly in the Caribbean, single family. So sustainable design. I think all of us to some degree have an understanding of what sustainable design is. Ideally, sustainable design is seeking to reduce the negative impacts of the environment. And as professionals of the built environment, we contribute to pollution and waste tremendously. So there's a lot of work that we need to do to make sure that we are, being as mindful as possible and pursuing our projects with our planet in mind. So sustainable design principles include the ability to optimize your site potential. What can we utilize from the project site that can incorporate into the overall design of the project? Minimize non-renewable energy consumption. Is there ways that we can integrate renewable energy consumption, which we'll talk about in a bit, using environmentally preferred products, protecting and conserving water, enhancing our indoor environmental quality, and of course, optimizing operation and maintenance practice and the end user, and making sure that we're being mindful of that. So sustainable design strategies. These are all different things that you can think about pretty early in the project timeline, because many times some of these will have to include specialists. An architect should be aware of many of these things, but more than not, you are leaning on other specialty consultants to advise on these things and these specialists to make the right decisions. I'm going to go over a few different sustainable building design strategies that can be utilized in your project. So the first one is passive sustainable design. So passive strategies, such as orienting your building to optimize how much sun is coming in, or if you want to minimize how much sun is coming in, making sure your orientation is accommodating to that. Being thoughtful about where window placements are, operation, maximizing wind, if that is an option on your site, location of trees that may be existing. And here you can see in this diagram, there's different, passive strategies in the sense that it is installed. It's not actively doing something, which we'll get into. We have the sun and we have, a shading device that's limiting how much sun is being filtered into this space, or making sure that our roofs have a good amount of insulation to control how much heat is transferred on the inside. If there's less heat transferred on the inside, your AC is not working as hard. um, Positioning windows and openings so that you have good airflow, right? Also minimizing, ceiling fans, or limiting how much AC you'll have to use. These are all different forms of passive sustainable design. Um, and then you have active sustainable design. Architects will consult with mechanical, plumbing, electrical engineers to implement high efficiency systems that are designed to have a smaller, I wouldn't say a small, this project looks pretty big, but a smaller environmental footprint. So making sure that um, we're trying to be as least wasteful as possible. Um, how we design, both passively to make sure things aren't working overdrive, or how we can filter atriums and green space and shading devices and different envelope systems to consider. And so here's a pretty great diagram that shows a bunch of different items and um, considerations when you're trying to integrate sustainable design decisions. So, if you have the opportunity where you are in a super sunny place, you don't have a lot of trees kind of blocking your building, is there an opportunity to use PV systems, solar panels to collect energy that way? If you are utilizing green roofs, is there a way that the rainwater can be collected and maybe used to water plants throughout the property? How are you taking advantage of summer sun and winter sun? Summer sun is higher in the sky than winter sun. So, in places like the Northeast, the winter sun, you want to make sure it's coming into the space to warm up the space. Versus in the summer, you would want it to be as shaded as possible to keep it as cool as possible. Um, again, strategically placing where natural ventilation can flow through the space. And these are just a few different examples that one can utilize. Um, Number three, renewable energy systems. So renewable energy systems include, solar, wind collection, bioenergy, hydroelectronic kind of collection. And this building in London has these wind turbines on top to be integrated in the overall building system. In opportunities where you have more land, maybe you have more wind turbines or more opportunities for kind of horizontal expansion of PV systems to have your own energy bank and feed it into your system. And those opportunities are very much coordinated with your MEP engineers, structural engineers, oftentimes. Everyone, as I'm sure you're learning, there's a lot of players that go into building a project. Green building materials and finishes, making it an opportunity to not only, be mindful of what products you're using, but where you're getting it from. Local is always best. It's not only best in terms of your carbon footprint. If you are working on a project in Puerto Rico and the roof tile you selected is only manufactured in California, that's traveling quite a ways away, instead of utilizing something that maybe can be manufactured in Florida or closer to the island. So always being mindful of those things, making sure to utilize as much recycled materials as possible. And in our case of kind of working in the Caribbean, you're dealing with a lot of moisture, and there's certain materials that will survive well and certain materials that will not do so great, and making sure that we're selecting products that will thrive and survive in the environments that we're building is also very mindful. Um, and then also native landscaping. Landscaping makes a huge impact on our projects. We're very lucky in South Florida to constantly be around a lot of lush environments. Um, However, you want to make sure that you're being thoughtful and using plants that will actually grow in the environment that you're in. If we're doing a project in Boston, planting palm trees is probably not the best thing for us to think, even if we really, really want them in our project. Versus here, where palm trees, sea grapes, all sorts of great kind of tropic plants will do really well here. This, choosing native planting allows us to be mindful of how much water we're using, because we want to make sure that plants are successful. We do not want to replace plants often, and we want to make sure that they can survive in the environment that they are in. And then stormwater management. This is something that South Florida deals with pretty, intensely, in an area where, for 6 months we're getting tons and tons and tons of rain. And as we know, sea levels and all those things we need to be mindful of. How are we getting water off the site? How are we collecting it? Are we reusing it? Is there um, purification that needs to happen? These are all components that are coordinated with other types of site engineers and civil engineers that will do that work. And just making sure that you are making space for those things, right? Because those systems require space. We can't have a water collection plant and not have some form of a tank or a cistern, to be able to do that, and then, you know, recycle as much of it into a property. Now, the next kind of component that we're going to get into are different forms of certification. I'm going to go over LEED certification and WELL certification. So, a LEED building, this is not a requirement for buildings to pursue, but if you are planning with a large sustainable component in mind, a lot of clients and developers and projects will submit themselves for certification. And you can be LEED certified, and then there's different tiers, and there's silver, gold, and platinum is the highest rank that you can get. And it is developed on a point system, which you'll see in the next slide. This is the Frost Museum here in Miami. That is also a LEED certified building. And then I placed a link, which you'll all get this PowerPoint. So you can look through some of the resources that are um, available on these different certifications. And that certification is, a big matrix of different components, sustainable sites. Examples, are you near a bus stop? Do you have bike racks? Are you near public transportation? Do you have to use a car to get to the space? How efficient is your water system? Your energy and your atmosphere, how efficient are those? Are you using green power? Are the sources of energy you're using, do you have backup? Materials and resources. Are you using local materials? Are you getting wood from Brazil all the way over here? Or are you being, oops, sorry, there's a dog in our office. Sorry for the barking. Um, you know, those sorts of components. Again, with indoor environmental quality, do you have good air quality in your space? Are you creating a healthy space? Which we'll get into a little deeper into well. Um, and then what does your design process look like? Regional priority, and then it all collects into your possible 110 points, which this may have changed. I think it definitely has changed since, um, from 110, and then what you can collect. So, well building standard is a vehicle for buildings to organize and to deliver more thoughtful and intentional spaces that enhance the human health and well-being. Um, the I would often describe LEED's initiative to be very much environmental focused, and well is that too, but it's also about how it impacts the end user and how it's impacting the individual that's within the space. So it's leaned on a lot of medical practitioners and professionals and public health experts to kind of identify what that standard is. I'm sure I think within the last decade, more well certifications are popping up, and more certificates, and pursuing that certificate has been more relevant. And similarly, it has a scaling system to grade yourself to. So there's 10 concepts of well. So air, water, nourishment, light, movement, thermal comfort, sound, materials, mind, and community. So we'll go through air, water, and nourishment. Air, promoting clean air to minimize human exposure to harmful contaminants in order to maximize productivity, well-being, and health. Water, increase adequate hydration in the building's occupants and reduce the health risk due to contaminated water and excessive moisture within buildings. Nourishment, support healthy eating patterns by increasing access to healthier food and beverage choices and limiting access to highly processed food and ingredients. In this first kind of component of, well, we're already starting to see the integration of the user and less of the building and its environment, and just integrating that as to one big thing. Light, movement, and thermal comfort, creating light environments that are optimal for visual, mental, and biological health. If you are taking an exam, you want to make sure that you are in a well lit, productive room. Schools are designed to maintain a certain light requirement to make sure that students have the ability to see, whether it's seeing the board or seeing their books. There's all sorts of requirements that need to be met for that health component and what light can do. And as we know, having natural light is such a huge component to someone's success. We don't, in South Florida, we don't feel it as heavy as folks in the north, but in the north by 3:30 it's sunset. 3:34 it's sunset. And there's even, sad seasonal depression. And in Florida, our sunsets are a little bit later, so we don't feel that impact as tremendously when our time changes. And then the next component, movement, promoting movement and discouraging sedentary behavior through active workstation, dedicating activity space and nature inspired interiors, whether it's a courtyard or a indoor garden or any of these other things that kind of allow you to keep moving. Thermal comfort, providing a combination of research-based interventions to address individual thermal discomfort and therefore support human wealth, well-being, and productivity. Um, and don't want to get super into the sorry, don't want to get super into the nitty gritty, but there is, a human body temperature that you want to be in, which is usually around, 70, 65 to 70 degrees, depending on what season it's in. The next few, sound, materials, mind, and community. Sound, identify and mitigate the acoustical comfort parameters that influence occupant experiences of the built environment. If you are in a space, if you're in a library and you have the same acoustical echoing of a theater space, you're probably not going to be able to utilize that space as productively as you would like. Um, and vice versa, right? You wouldn't want to be in a theater that is so silent that it's not being able to maximize its acoustical abilities. Materials, identify, evaluate, manage hazardous ingredients across building materials, waste, cleaning products, outdoor spaces, landscaping to reduce the risk of exposure. Mind, implement nature and inspired design, create restorative spaces to promote resources supporting mental health, sleep support, substantial abuse and emotional well-being. And community, design buildings that are inclusive, accessible, healthy, and safe. Create policies and programs that support those needs, health, and wellness of all individuals and families. Um, it's always great to design a wonderful project or design a wonderful building, but it makes it even better when a community can really take advantage of that. And what those scoring looks like. So there's a few more categories here. It goes from bronze to platinum being the highest, and the total points achieved are 80. Going to go through two different case studies. So a well-certified case study. This is a project in San Francisco. It was a well-certified gold. Some of the design highlights is with maintaining a, extensive natural daylight, a high level of transparency that conveys the company's commitment to community sustainability and promoting employee engagement. Um, the building's form and strategically placed louvers allow for natural ventilation for the lower 3 floors 95% of the year, significantly reducing the energy consumption. The gray water system reclaims water from the showers for flushing and irrigation. And then the design team and the client group understand the potential of the space to educate occupants and bring better awareness to its end users. In Singapore, you have the SCE4. It was certified gold. A little bit different of approach, right? How are we integrating landscape into the actual enclosure of the building, whether it's these incredibly lush kind of gardens you can walk through, open air spaces where you can take some breaks. There's some up here, some down here, and you can see there's a number of levels where you're constantly integrating with nature. It is located in the National University of Singapore School of Design and Environment and is the first purpose-built net zero building built in Singapore. It is a 6-story building with a living laboratory to demonstrate and explore human-centric approaches for integrated sustainable development. It is a testament of the university's commitment to incorporate sustainability in various aspects of campus life, not only from operations, but from construction, research, and education. The building energy efficiency and environmentally friendly with a suite of innovative building strategies to improve comfort and well-being to its users. And a more academic architectural case study in Milan. So the project was to create a vertical garden in Milan, known to be the business area in Europe. The idea was to be 26 floors, about 110 meters high. The building itself was using renewable energy from solar panels and filtered waste through sustaining the building's life plant. I think what solar panels used to be 20 years ago versus now, there's even glass that has solar panel systems in them. There's roof tiles that are so thin that they don't look like the more traditional PV systems. The design here was very much integrating as much greenery as possible, and it was tested in a wind tunnel to make sure that trees aren't going to topple from gusts of wind. And also, being realistic. It's not going to be green all the time. So what does it look like when it's changing seasons or when it's in between? How do you encourage biodiversity in the project? So with that, I think that was a great crash course or a great intro. I'm sure if there's any of the other mentors who are sustainable designers or consultants can probably add about 600 more slides, but that'll be the end for us here. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Tiffany.
No.
All right. So just so everyone remembers, so the questions regarding today's presentations were posted in the chat. So you can refer to that and submit your questions to your teachers respectively. And does anyone have any questions about what was presented? Feel free to go ahead and ask. Okay, maybe a question for you, Tiffany. You mentioned doing a number of residential projects in Puerto Rico. Do you find that the owners of those projects try to pursue a LEED certification or WELL certification?
I currently don't have any clients right now who are pursuing LEED certification, but a big estate that I am working on actually in Puerto Rico, and I can pull up an image.
Dorado Beach, Stephanie, is LEED certified.
Yes.
That was a project that
We have worked on LEED
we
certified
yeah we
projects,
yeah
but
so that would be
residential
challenging.
specifically, um, it can be a little bit harder, right? Often with bigger scaled projects,